We had a listener question actually from the son of a listener who said he's a huge fan of Jacob Collier. Because you play so many instruments, do you still practice all of them? And do you have a practice routine to keep up your skills in all these instruments?
Oh, wowzer. Well, to be honest, there's a difference between practicing and playing, right? In my lifetime, I've done so much more playing than I've done practicing, but playing can be more efficient at times. There are things that one needs to practice at different points in one's musical life, I suppose, that kind of help things work themselves out. And so I remember, for example, practicing triads for a while because, I was really good at understanding like these cluster chords with all these wonderful notes in them. And it's like, whoa, bursts of color. This is great. I could do this all day long. Oh, it's just so nutritious. And then I realized that if I wanted to understand this properly, I'd have to strip them down into the triads that kind of made them up. And so there was one thing I practiced for a while, which was just if you take a major scale, like C major, you cadence to each degree of the scale if every scale note is a bass note. So for example, you're in C, and then you go to D, and then you go to E, and you go to F, then you go to G, then you go to A minor, and then you go back to C via B. And I did that in every single key. And by the time I'd done it in every single key, I could find my way around all these keys that felt very foreign, right? And so there was a period of time where I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to work my way around key centers and sort of tread water in keys. If I wanted to be in D for a while, one thing that classical organists need to study, and they're kind of like the only people left now who are studying these things, is just how to be in a key for a while. Learn how to be in D, and it feels really kind of natural. And then obviously at the shortest notice, you have to be able to change key and go into say that. And I saw people and I was like, why can't I do this? So I sat down and practiced what it meant to just be in a key for a while. But a lot of my practicing felt like play because no one had told me to do it. But a lot of the things I was practicing actually were kind of heavy concepts, And I think that looking back, I've been practicing more than I've sort of liturgically planned and realized that I have been, just because I've been so determined to make something that I like that I've forgotten the amount of work that it takes to do it. One thing, for example, I've done a lot of practice at is working with Logic Pro, which is this recording software that I've been using now for 14 years. I got it when I was 11 for my birthday, and I've spent so many thousands of hours practicing how to use Logic, but I've never practiced how to use Logic ever before, really, by sitting down and thinking about it, because I've just always been making things with it. So it hasn't felt like practice, even though I have been doing that kind of legwork. But I suppose to round off the question, I think that your fascinations and your kind of taste often will dictate your practice routine to a point. And I also don't think that I'm a particularly good case study, because I was very resistant to concepts early on that would have helped me a great deal, like thumb under fingers, for example. But in time, I found it, and I'm a huge believer in, if you follow your goosebumps in a process, and you follow the things that you find exciting from your listening, from your creation, and you put yourself in a situation where you have to solve a problem, and you'll stop at nothing to solve it, you will kind of inevitably end up solving some of these fundamental problems, and you'll develop these kinds of intuitions where, say for example, when I was playing around with chords at a young age, I sort of always felt like this chord was less strong than this chord. And I later learned that Bach, who's like the OG legend, he didn't like to double his thirds very much. But I hadn't really taken that into account with my left brain, but I found it with my right brain after a while. It was like, yeah, I always find myself moving when I have a two thirds in a chord. And the more you do something, the better you get at it. And sometimes I think people sit and wait around until they're skilled enough to get started. But I just don't believe that's true. I think the sooner you can get started, the better. And again, look back at children and see how unqualified they were to learn language, and see how fast they learned it when they were just given the freedom to mess around with it.
If you enjoyed today's video, then please make sure you click to subscribe. And if you're a music teacher looking for help with any aspect of your teaching, studio, or business, then make sure you check out topmusicpro.com for all our membership details.